things have gotten far worse than I could ever have imagined. My paranoia had driven me to the point where I was no longer the protector my wife and theoretical children needed, jumping at every shadow, every noise.
I hated myself. I couldn't help but hate myself for the things I thought I was responsible for. I thought I'd lost everything.
It's ironic, isn't it? In my attempts to protect her, I ended up becoming the monster myself.
Okay, look, you've seen the Amazing Digital Circus. In a nutshell, you know that there are people trapped in a digital video game. There's no escape. They're in a computer and they've verified that they've come to this digital world after wearing a headset. We're so sure of their humanness because they've made Breaking Bad references, know about softball of all sports, and clearly hate the fact they can't have lights. But who keeps the lights on? It can't be Caine, and with the obvious downfall of the company that made the Amazing Digital Circus, called CNA, can we really say this corporation is still functional? Hello, this is Ryan the Calm, and I hope to answer these basic questions and throw my own hat into the theory ring once again. No, stop. No, stop it. Stop! Ah! When I was originally making my script, I was talking with my friend Pebzap about the show, and we started spitballing theories and overall just talking about the nuance of the series. The topic shifted about the world beyond the digital circus. Not the void, mind you, but what Caine would call the macroverse.
This macroverse place really intrigues me, and these photos are all I have of the location. I'm obsessed with them. I just wish I had more info on the location so I could accurately recreate it. Too bad they cut me off, right?
Yeah, what a shame.
Or the real world.
You picked the good ending, where you realize you'd rather stay with me than go back to that pesky old macroverse or whatever we decide to call it. I knew you'd make the right choice.
That's when I started thinking about how the circus could have survived. With so many people that were trapped in the circus, it makes me wonder why some characters don't have a police or medical background. Hey, Barrymon, what did you do before joining the circus? You know, I can imagine Barrymon just squinting. I was trying to save your mother ass. Looks behind him. Just like the other guys. You know, they're all just like with police and medical backgrounds, right? If you really think about the circus, there's no way that so many missing people don't have a police investigation that breaks through with some sort of clue as to their whereabouts. The only time this isn't the case is if CNA headquarters is as far underground as Poppy Playtime's factory, which is highly unlikely. Or CNA is still operational and actively taking in participants. There are other theories about it, but the main reason for the circus's survival that many fans have brought up is Soma Theory. I have touched upon this before, but in short, Soma Theory is the scary thought experiment that Pomni, Jax, Ragatha, Kinger, Zooble, and Gangle are digital copies of themselves. Like Star Trek's transporter, they've been transported into the digital realm from the real world, but with no undo button in sight.
Malfunction.
Starfleet, boost your metagame. We need more signal. More signal!
They're losing their pattern.
Oh no, they're forming.
Meanwhile, their human selves take off the headset, shrug, and don't try it again, leaving their digital copies behind to the hell they've spawned in. Don't think about it too hard, or you'll probably get depression again. So my point isn't existential dread this time, though. It's existential existence. If the Amazing Digital Circus is still online, even after being deserted, then someone has to be taking care of it. My theory has to assume these things. 1. That Soma Theory is true for the Amazing Digital Circus. 2. That CNA closed down, which I think is true because it's not like Pomni was saying that she was there to test, just that she puts on a headset. At the very least, she's an unknowing participant. 3. That despite CNA's closure, somebody in the real world is keeping the lights on, and not only that, they're keeping the game running perpetually. My original and favorite thought about who could be taking care of the circus naturally leads to a certain character, perhaps a human kinger. The symbolism is there. Kinger literally portrays the leading piece to the game, where his fall could mean win or loss for the other team. This meaning could apply to the story within the digital circus anyways, but if we pretend that Kinger's human self is watching over the game and caring for the players by keeping the game alive, it would make sense, right? I mean, Kinger's whole persona is that of somebody who wants to do his best for those around him and to guide them as best as he can.
Man, 7 years of computer science for this, huh?
Why? Every day I spend here is one nightmare after the next. I knew it would end up like this! He just wants me to suffer. I really am in hell.
Don't say that. You're not in... Well, I guess we are technically in... Forget about that.
Taking into account Kinger's past, he implies he got into advanced computer programming. It's the perfect resume for a gaming company like CNA, which made this highly complex video game before shutting down. With episode 7 heavily implying that Kinger was one of the first characters in the circus, I think I could safely say that Kinger spawned in the circus as a game tester at the very least. At most, he is or was a leading programmer. So let's take Kinger and Soma Theory and put ourselves in human Kinger's shoes. You take your wife to work at CNA headquarters, and in your excitement, you tell the person you love the most just how life-changing your project is, and that she's just got to try it. That you finally ironed out the kinks and set up an experimental AI host that's stable enough to have some real fun. Here, Queenie, take that headset. It's gonna be great. Well... you both put it on, and then you take it off. At first, you've both had the time of your life. In the span of seconds, you get to enjoy the circus. Or maybe the game functions in a way that takes your memories so that you could watch what you would do during the adventure just on screen. And then the first bit of feedback from your wife floors you. It's still going. We're still going. When do we stop? Stop? Human Kinger asks himself. He never let the program run this far before. You and your other coworkers were so involved in the creation of your game and the technology you've invented that you failed to test the game under longer circumstances. Soon, the realization hits Human Kinger and maybe the rest of the CNA programmers involved. You've potentially created digital life. Now, Human Kinger would be morally obligated to keep the simulation running. After all, it's just not right to end their existence. Months or even years go by, and the game is still running. The AI you've programmed is glitching out, and you've discovered significant errors in the coding that corrupts the copies trapped in the game. The AI you've trained yearns for some sort of guidance or communication, but instead you follow the prime directive from Star Trek, your main source of guidance about what to frickin' do in a unique situation like this, and you do not interfere. But with that moral and fear of judgment from similar-minded people you admire, the consequences are that you have to make sure your creations keep living.
I remember my first wild take.
I tell this story with the idea that it could be Human Kinger that takes on this mantle of caretaker for the Amazing Digital Circus. But the more I think about it, a Human Kinger doesn't necessarily need to be involved in this scenario. It could be another unknown character that takes on this responsibility. I personally think Kinger would fit in that role rather well, because he for sure would take responsibility. And I could totally see him doing this for the players in the circus. But because I don't have proof of this, I'll go ahead and refer to Human Kinger simply as the caretaker now. Because no matter who takes this responsibility, it would make sense as to why others would wind up being trapped there too. If CNA was still operational, it would not make sense for somebody like Zooble or Pomni to suddenly wind up in the circus. They'd get caught for trespassing, at least easier anyways. In episode 5, they both allude to the fact that they have made it a hobby of theirs to explore abandoned buildings after all. This is why I think CNA is closed down, and that somebody took it upon themselves to watch the game as it runs on that old computer. computer, the Caretaker. But the problem with that is, the Caretaker would only be human. It would be impossible to expect somebody to take care of the Amazing Digital Circus 24/7, which means it's completely possible for an intruder to sneak into the building and put on that headset, dooming a part of themselves to a digital hell. If that were the case, I wonder if the Caretaker is getting tired of watching the circus. I could only imagine what somebody like that would be going through every time they learn that another character gets added into the roster. The Caretaker theory also neatly explains one other facet of the digital circus that I don't think many people talk about. If you wear the headset once, you get inducted into the circus, right? Well, what if you wear it again? Does another Pomni materialize? Or a different character that would act like Pomni? Makes you wonder if it's happened before. Totally not making a Ribbit reference here. No matter the case, it makes sense that there would be less similar looking or copied characters due to the fact that this Caretaker would have eventually found out any intruders and banned them from the area. Imagine a human Kinger kicking out human Pomni, cursing her out, telling her to never come back to that building again. Meanwhile, human Pomni just shrugs it off and runs away from the manic crazy man in the abandoned building going, "Geez, what's that guy's problem?" What a problem indeed. Because whoever that Caretaker would be, the main thought on their mind was that somebody was just inducted into the digital circus, and that there could have been a situation where the computer was turned off, killing whomever was inside.
Hit the leftmost light switch by the door for me. The left. Okay, lights on. So, did I just hear 3 distinct light switch clicks?
That's basically how it all shaked out. I'm sorry.
Alright, come on.
What?
Come on! Grab a shovel.
Quite the danger. Of course, there's also an alternative to the computer shutting off. I wonder if somehow resetting the game could undo many of the errors in the Amazing Digital Circus. Imagine resetting the game to a defragged Caine that's able to parse through data easier and more refreshed. Imagine the players being defragged, essentially being cured of abstraction. With the context of the show being a hopeless digital hell, though, this idea certainly seems like a pipe dream, doesn't it? Thanks for joining my thought experiment and listening to my tale. This video is released before the 8th episode of Digital Circus, but even if it's wrong, it was certainly a fun story to tell. It remains to be seen what Kinger's fate is in the Amazing Digital Circus, and I'm glad I'm here for it. This is Ryan the Calm. Until next time.